Prime Minister addressing this issue to the Economic Forum in Davos. Take a listen.
But we can overcome it. The reason we did well in Israel is, one, because we purchased a lot fast. Didn't quibble about the price. I personally got involved in it. And I said just basically to the bureaucrats, cut the whatever. I want to be diplomatic, so cut the nonsense.
Please feel free to share with us very candidly. So,
well, cut the C word in English or any other word that you want. I mean, this is ridiculous. You know, you'll pay a few more dollars per dose now. Tomorrow, everybody will be paying 10 times that much. So, number one, that. Number two, the legal people. I actually was on the phone with the president of, with the CEO of Pfizer, Albert Bourla. I think at 2 o'clock in the morning, he put his legal advisor on, I put our legal advisor on, and we crashed it. So you need personal leadership to move it. And basically the selling point was a real one, turns out to be true, that Israel could serve as a world laboratory for herd immunity or something approaching herd immunity very quickly. Because we have an efficient distribution system, we proved that, with 4 HMOs that are at once competing and cooperating with each other. It's a unique system. That's why we have actually the highest life expectancy almost in the world, with one of the lowest frequencies of diseases at the minimal cost, about 8% of GDP. And it's a lot to do with this system that combines competition and social security floor that protects every citizen. So 98% of our citizens have digital records in these HMOs that go back 20 years. And we offered to share that with Pfizer and with all humanity to understand what the effects of mass inoculations are on subgroups, not individual information. That's nothing. Nobody gets that. But statistical information that could prove very valuable. And the most important thing, I think, the most pressing thing, is the question of what real degree, not only of personal protection do you get from vaccines, but what is the level of preventing infections when you receive the inoculation? That's a critical question, obviously, as you want to open the economy and restore life to normal. In short, I gave Pfizer the argument that they could benefit from the data that we could produce, and they were convinced. And then we went along and did this. And in fact, our health system did exactly that. We have a digitized system for distributing health, 1,400 sites in a very small country of 9 million, and they just work it out. And again, on the distribution, I take, I don't call them that much, 5 times a day.
I heard that you had been on the phone 70 times with the Pfizer CEO. So
21 times, not 17, not 70, but 21 times. Okay. But also I speak with Stefan Bancel of Moderna. I've spoken to the heads of the other companies. I think you need personal leadership here. It's like checking on munitions in a war. You really have to make sure you're getting, first of all, the stock of vaccines. Then you have to make sure that they're distributed. And they have to be distributed basically in an optimized way that keeps changing, but we're doing that. So that's basically what we have done. And I think the important thing is not merely what we've done for Israel, but the fact that Israel can serve as basically a global, really, truly a global test case, not for dangerous experiments, but to understand this safe experiment that we're carrying out. What is the best way, and what is the efficacy of using this and later Moderna inoculation to move the economies to open up the economies? What risk are we taking? What's the infection rate, and so on? So that's basically what we're doing, and I think a lot of countries will profit by it.
No, thank you for that, and thank you for your leadership. But one short follow-up question on something you said that, of course, we are all concerned about now is the mutation. We have the UK piece, but we've also seen in Brazil and South Africa. It seems like the current vaccines, at least Pfizer, works okay with the UK variant, but we don't know yet on the others. But this also probably then shows, as you were alluding to, Prime Minister, that we in the future will see different mutations, and then we also have to adjust the vaccines. Do you foresee that when this COVID-19 is around, it's going to be like the flu? So every fall you have to take an updated flu vaccine. Do you think it's going to stay around? And how are you prepared for then adjusting the vaccines? And are you very worried that the new strains the vaccines will not be want to work on the new strains? Just because it seems like you have gone very meticulously into this subject.
Well, the answer to your first question is yes. I expect there will be, we'll have to inoculate ourselves at least annually. That's my guess. I know I'm not completely sure, but that's, if I had to guess, yes. And I'm stocking Israel's shelf, so to speak, with vaccines with that assumption. Of course, I want to sign contracts for future purchases based on the idea that the vaccines will alternate. For example, they're now testing for children. And by the way, I think they should test in parallel several ages with reduced doses and not do a serial testing system. I spoke about that to both Albert Bourla and Stefan Bancel, because I think you can cut a lot of time. There's a lot of bureaucracy in this stuff, and where you can cut time, you should. But as we proceed with either new vaccines or modified vaccines for mutations and modified vaccines for teenagers and children, then I think we should stock them and deliver them. And I expect this, yes, I expect this to be exactly like the flu, probably more so than the flu. That's the first thing. And will that, you asked, I'm sorry, the second question was?
It was also related to the effect, how effective the vaccines will be and are on the current new strains from South Africa.
Yeah, well, I think it's just a question of time that you're going to get. But right now, the vaccines, these two vaccines, Moderna and Pfizer, are overcome the various strains that have appeared that we know about and that they've tested. But if you ask me statistically, it's just probabilistically, okay, it's just a question of time. And I'm not sure a lot of time. Don't pretend to be an expert on vaccines. But I think that from what I can ascertain from talking to the people who are experts in this, it's just a question of time before we hit a strain that the current vaccines are not susceptible to it. And because of that, the risk that would happen, I shut down the airports. I'm the first country in the world to totally shut down commercial flights. Totally. No commercial flights, nothing. If we have emergency flights, we have the Air Force or private carriers, but the idea of, and I'm shutting the land borders too. I'm just shutting it down because, what's the point? All the mutations that you see today, the South African, the British, the Brazilian, and so on, that's already you're 2 weeks too late. They've already gone. And the new ones you wouldn't know about for another several weeks or whatever. So I've shut down the borders too, because I can do something that other countries I think would like to do too. They might be able to do it. And that is to inoculate millions of people in the time that I close the country and try to win the race between mutation and vaccination.
Well, thank you so much, Prime Minister. We know that we have limited time, so I wanted to go first to Stefan Uschmann, Chair and of the Executive Board and CEO of Merck. Stefan, are you with us? I think you're ready for asking a question to the Prime Minister.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prime Minister. Israel has such a vibrant innovation ecosystem, and I wanted to ask you a question that goes beyond the pandemic. My company, Merck, has been in Israel for more than 50 years. We're working closely with many institutions. Our friends at the Weizmann Institute or Hebrew University are like family members family members to us, and we have R&D centers in different businesses, in biopharma, in life science, in electronic materials. Israel has, as I said, such a vibrant scene. You have more PhDs per capita than anywhere else. You have this incredible innovation network. You have high-ranking government officials rolling out a very clear policy, and we have so many things to tackle through science and technology within this pandemic and beyond the pandemic. I had the chance to discuss these topics with you together with Chancellor Merkel. Could you tell us what would be your advice to other nations? How can we use science and technology to tackle these problems and do the right thing for our countries? What can we learn from Israel?
Well, first of all, thank you, Mr. Oshman, for your leadership and for being involved with Israel, because we appreciate these cooperations enormously. I think the key is two things. Most people think it's education, and it is. That is, the level of education, especially higher education, is critical. And we've had that all along. But that is a necessary but insufficient condition for the emergence of a high-tech or innovative economy. I mean, the most important one, and I would even put it before education, is free markets. You cannot really innovate in closed markets. So you have to give free markets, and you have to take certain risks because some of that innovation, in our case, comes especially from the military. That's where we've had our stock of innovation, especially IT. We invest at some cost. We invest a huge amount of our national resources on and maintaining effective intelligence. Israel's a small country, but it has a giant head. Giant. I mean, its collection agencies are, in the West, probably number 2 in size, absolute size. It's not the NSA, but it's not 1/40th of the NSA. That's our relative size compared to the United States. So that's an investment that goes annually all the time. And it produces people who coast the information networks, who develop algorithms, who are in all sorts of adjacent technologies, and we take our best brain power to do that. We literally canvass the whole country, and we put our finest brains in these disciplines, these and other disciplines. So that's sunk cost. It won't go very far unless these people can, when they leave the military or the Mossad or wherever, they can start their businesses. And if they find a web of bureaucracy and ridiculously high taxes, which Israel had for years, they'll go elsewhere. Like my brother-in-law was a pilot and a very gifted high-tech guy who went to California and worked for this small company called Intel, But his son is one of the great, he's a young guy. He's in Israel now because the environment changed. We changed the environment. We made it a very pro-business environment. We just submitted to the Knesset the last one, which is absurd that we didn't have it. But Israeli insurance funds and pension funds could not invest. Angel investment in high tech was not possible. We just changed that. So everything you saw is still carrying a burden of bureaucracy, and that's our growth opportunity is our bureaucracy. Everything you see in Israel, this fantastic growth, has been done with the iron boot of bureaucracy, holding down the spring of additional innovation. And the best growth possibility that we have, and any country has, is just removing it and let the spring move out. You just get 10 years of growth for nothing, just by reducing these absurd things. I'm telling you this because I chair very few ministerial committees, defense and foreign affairs, that's clear. But I chair another committee, which is deregulation. And we moved from being close to last place in the OECD, next to the last place of the OECD. In 5 years, we moved 18 places because every 2 weeks I sit down with this regulation, I or my director general, and we just cut, slash, as much as we can. So I would say, deregulate, open up your economies, in addition to having education. If you happen to require a military, make sure it's focused on brains before brawn. That's essentially the story of what Israel has done.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister. Fighting a red tape, but also I looked at the numbers, I think.
All right, that was Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu speaking virtually at the Davos Economic Forum.